Who's the crown jewel of next year's draft class, and who should the Jazz want to draft? Is it someone other than AJ?
You are Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Jazz. I'm Leif Thulin, excited to be back with you, filling in for David Locke on Locked On Jazz. As most of you guys know by now, I'm a lifelong Jazz fan, credentialed NBA draft analyst, attendee of the 2023 and 2024 NBA Combines, Jazz broadcast assistant statistician each of the past 4 seasons, and lover of college hoops. So make sure you guys know what you need to know about the prospects coming in both this year and the next year. And that's what we'll talk about today. So thank you guys for making Locked On Jazz your first listen each and every day. And remember, Locked On Jazz is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube at Locked On Jazz, where the best way to help us grow is to comment anything below. And today's question is, who do you think is going number one? Who's the player you want most for the Jazz if the Jazz were to get number one? And who do you think is the best player? Those might all be 3 different answers. I'm going to talk about all 3 of those players coming up soon. And thank you to today's sponsor. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is just around the corner. Visit FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now. Today I'll show you and analyze the games of 3 stars that will headline the upcoming draft class, give my takes on each player and who I think is the best now and who will be the best by the time they touch the NBA court. So let's dive right in. Let's start with Dybantsa, who is going to BYU. It's the name that will be the most familiar to fans watching this, Jazz fans and BYU fans, and even Utah fans who are dreading playing AJ in a rivalry game. I think AJ is the guy that is the most well-known commodity of this draft, but I do think if you watch him carefully, there are some flaws. But let me tell you what he is. He's going to be at BYU. He was just in Hurricane, Utah, playing for Utah Prep, and he has brought dozens of eyeballs to the state of Utah's basketball, and that's wonderful. He's considered the top potential player in this class due to his prototypical size and skill set and top-notch athleticism. He can soar, absolutely jump out of the gym. And in many classes, I think he'd easily be the first pick. So that's not to say not getting AJ is a disaster. It's not. It's not a disaster because he's not clearly number one in this class. But in most classes, not getting AJ would be a disaster. In fact, AJ was seen ahead of Cooper by most in terms of ranking players regardless of class. He was seen ahead of Cooper Flagg by most entering last college season. And let that sink in. Like, Cooper Flagg was unbelievable. We talked about him being better than Zion Williamson, being better than perhaps Anthony Davis, the best prospect since LeBron that's from America, right? Like, that's crazy. And he was seen as better. Personally, I prefer Cooper due to the processing of the game and just how maniacally competitive he is. And how that results to winning at all costs. Like, he will do whatever it takes to win, and he got better and better. I preferred Cooper, but I don't think it's crazy to say AJ has a higher potential. So what is AJ? He's a 6'9", two-way wing. He's got great size for a wing. I saw him in person at the Delta Center, and he was talking to Thurl Bailey, and Thurl Bailey's 6'11", 7 foot, and they were looking eye to eye. I think he might even be taller than 6'9", at least in shoes. He's got a nearly 7 foot wingspan. And there are rumors he's still growing. He's got over an 8'10" standing reach. He's a high-level athlete, incredible fluidity of the lower body, and I think he's got very good coordination, upper body as well. He's in high school. Many of these guys who are unbelievable athletes are the quickest player, and that was the case for him throughout high school. But his jumper sticks out to me because despite being at 6'9", using those long strides, covering a ton of ground, getting to the basket, and despite his superior athleticism, he isn't reliant on it and has an advanced offensive game. At times you say, well, why is he settling? But I kind of like what I saw in terms of the development and progress of his game. He's been the quickest player many times, but the development and progress sticks out to me because so many of these guys can just like use their muscle or be so athletic they jump over people, get to the free throw line. Like, he is more than just a run and jump athlete, and his jumper is miles ahead of another guy who is built similarly, jumps similarly, and had a heck of a mixtape, much like AJ did. When I was in middle school, there was a guy named Andrew Wiggins, or the Maple Mamba, and you'd watch him at Orangeville Prep, and you'd say, well, this guy's the next LeBron. And you'd be wrong. That's not what he ended up being. But Andrew Wiggins has been a good player in the NBA. AJ is Wiggins-level twitchy, athletic and fluid, with far better shooting stroke already demonstrated and the ability to get whatever shots you want because he can drive, and you have to respect that, and he can step back and shoot, or you can play up on him because he can shoot and he drives right by you. His three-point shooting statistically has been a little bit iffy, but his stroke looks really good, and the clips you see have you salivating about his step-back threes and his ability to cross over and have this ball on a string for someone of that size at his age. I think he generates space using his burst to create more airspace, and that's superb. Comparatively, I actually think Ace Bailey, who I talked about in yesterday's episode for the Everydayers, I really encourage you to check that out because I compared him to a lot of pros, and I'm comparing AJ to Ace here, but also AJ to a couple Hall of Famers coming up next. I think Ace is a more gifted shooter of the basketball than AJ, but AJ has the more dynamic, rare twitchiness to complement the same size, and AJ might even be bigger than Ace to go downhill, whereas Ace has never been that twitchy. He's more of a rare shot maker, a difficult shot maker. AJ has some of that difficult shot making, but better elite level athleticism that Ace does not have. AJ, of the guys that we're going to talk about, the three prospects, has the most unteachable skills of this class and thus likely the highest ceiling. But I actually think he'll be the third best college player of the trio. That's Darren Peterson, Cam Boozer, the other two. After long being considered the best high schooler, there's some people who would say Darren Peterson's the better high schooler. But he was long considered the best high schooler. He had all the hype in the world and deserves it. He's fantastic. I just think that there's so many good players in this class. It's very, very rare. My comps for him are pretty otherworldly, honestly. My first one, Tracy McGrady at its peak. He just has that length and body and fluidity that is super rare, a dunk contest type of leaper, a smooth operator in the mid-range, and someone who can elevate and shoot from three as well. That reminds me a little bit of a scaled-down version of T-Mac and Paul George. Then I compared him to Andrew Wiggins. I think if you're going to go Andrew Wiggins, the worst case, you're thrilled. I think that's a little disrespectful to what Andrew Wiggins is. So maybe you go like RJ Barrett with more shooting ability and maybe more dynamic creation, whereas RJ was just like a hard line drive to the left type of guy. But that archetype in the NBA is exceedingly rare to have that level of athleticism coupled with what he can do, or what I think he can do at the basketball as a shooter. My expectations for him at BYU are he's going to be great. I think he's going to be really, really good. I just wonder how quickly he'll coalesce with having other players that are very good with the basketball in their hands. Like Richie Saunders was all Big 12 last year, and he's coming back for a fifth year. Richie Saunders is a really good player, should be an All-American contender. Rob Wright torched BYU at BYU from when he was playing at Baylor and was arguably the more impactful player between he and VJ Edgecombe, and Edgecombe went third in the NBA draft. So I don't know how AJ is going to handle not being on the ball all the time, whereas I think Darren Peterson will. I think Cam Boozer will have the ball even more frequently than AJ. I could be wrong. He could be a first-team All-American, and I could see that happening. I would not be shocked whatsoever. Like AJ Dybantsa is fantastic. I just want to caution you just saying, oh, if he's not a first-team All-American, the other guys are, that's not end-all be-all. He could easily still be the first overall pick when compared to first overall pick caliber players. Like that's very, very rare. Paul George, Andrew Wiggins, RJ Barrett, Tracy McGrady. I think those are really, really enticing prospects, all on their own, of course. So my consensus is he's going to be awesome, and Jazz fans should be excited. But there are others I think could be better in college and maybe better in the pros. So coming up next, I'll tell you about a player I believe, as we currently speak on August 12th, or I guess August 13th, when you guys listen to this, that is the best right now and may actually be the best long-term. But the one that I believe is the best right now, as we speak, is Darren Peterson. I'm going to tell you all about him coming your way next. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals for NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week one even kicks off, this is your moment. So if you want to take a flyer on the MVP race, how do you feel about Joe Burrow, someone who puts up staggering numbers and his team should be better than it was last year? Crown your champion in August. What about the Chiefs? They came up close last year, close but no cigar. Mahomes is out for revenge. Or maybe you want to parlay your division winner dark horses. So two I like are the Eagles in the NFC East and the Texans in the AFC South. And you can get some winnings based on those predictions. So let me know what you guys like. Those are some that I think are decent picks. And visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets right now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. Welcome back to Locked On Jazz. Leif Thulin with you here, and we're talking Darren Peterson. And like I said, teasing this segment, I think Darren Peterson is better than AJ right now. I simply do. I don't have the conviction in this take to say that he will be the better pro yet. I will happily update you guys in a few months once I see both play collegiate basketball and I can see and scale it up more easily than I can with high school players. But I'll tell you what about Darren Peterson. He's a dynamic, big guard who has drawn lofty, and I mean lofty comparisons. Peterson, while playing for prolific Prep, scored 61 points in a game against AJ Dybantsa. Like, he's fantastic. And he won that game. So he scored 61. AJ put up a meager 49 for Utah Prep. And Peterson, the thing that stuck out to me, though, aside from the 61, was that he had a game winner. He wanted the ball, took it, and scored. He has that cold-blooded killer type of score mentality that you just don't see too often from players this age and this era. He's 6'5", and he can really score. Bill Self, a Hall of Fame coach who's won multiple championships, has recruited tons of blue chip recruits, and he says he's easily the best recruit he's ever had, and that includes over Andrew Wiggins, who I already said had one of the best mixtape ever, and he was considered a potential, next LeBron type of guy, or Joel Embiid. Like, these guys are fantastic players. No slight to them, but he has conviction that Darren Peterson's the best recruit he's had. Peterson backed that up by being the co-MVP at the McDonald's All-American game. And let's get into what makes Darren Peterson so dynamic, what I like about him so much. Peterson isn't just a true point guard who's a capable scorer. I think that's kind of a misnomer because you see point guard next to him. But he reminds me a little bit in style of a guard like that I like the most, in terms of if I'm trying to project a guard forward, I want someone who has the ball in his hands and uses his scoring talents to dice up defenses. And then they try to help stop him. The defense schemes about him, and then they learn to make the right reads and make their scoring proclivity a strength in terms of their passing. And he seems to be clutch. He seems to be dynamic in the high school game. Of course, the best athletes always shine against high schoolers. But Darren Peterson, to my eye, is a special driver, a very good rim finisher. His change of direction and handle is very, very advanced for his age. I also think he has some of the best touch for a guard that I've seen in quite a while. He has floaters. He's gotten soft finishes with English around the rack, and he's able to squeeze his way through defenders, use that first step that's lightning quick, get by, decelerate, or accelerate from a standstill position in an instant, and he's just slithery. And he's a nightmare to stay in front of with his change of pace, slippery handles. And though he doesn't have the most bounce and dunk on your head ability, it doesn't stop him from scoring extremely efficiently at all levels of competition in the paint. And I think he's able to manufacture even better looks with advanced footwork as well. He's very polished and not just one of those his first step's fantastic, no one else is going to be there. Like Isaiah Collier for the Utah Jazz, not that they're on the same level, but Isaiah Collier was known as the number one player in his class because no one could stay in front of him. He was just stronger and faster than people. This guy's stronger and faster, but he has this unique ability to decelerate and score by playing with guile, even though his athleticism is I wouldn't say top-notch, but very high level. His hesitation move, unbelievable. And the slightest look at the rim gets people to jump, and he can pull back and shoot jumpers, or he can drive right to the rim. So to me, he reminds me of a sense of SGA. And I know you guys are going to say, wait a minute, didn't you say about Trey Johnson? But let me elaborate. He reminds me of SGA far more in play style than my comparison for Trey Johnson to SGA, which was essentially saying scoring equals attention, and attention, if handled well, equals creation for others. And I saw the scoring skills for Trey Johnson, and I said the best role for him would be the ball in his hands. That was not a true comparison. That was a vision of a role. This is a true comparison. He's a big, skillful guard who by nature is not a point guard, but will create due to his scoring chops that are top-notch. He also has that calm disposition, get to his spot kind of nonchalantly and do his thing that Shai has. And Darren Peterson has an amazing first step that gets him to the rim or sets up step backs. And I think he's a better shooter than SGA is as a pure shooter. Maybe he won't be as good a free throw shooter. Maybe he won't shoot as high of a percentage, but I think he's a better natural shooter. I think Peterson is more skilled than AJ Dybantsa as we speak right this moment. And I think that's by a decent margin. And I think that leaves him less room for polishing off his game to complement the monstrous athleticism that AJ has. Like AJ can refine some things and make himself even more of a monster. I think Peterson's closer to what he'll be, which is why I think he's going to be better in the collegiate setting. The comparisons I've seen, like I said, are lofty. I've seen young Kobe a lot of times, and that is a very specific comparison. I wasn't alive for the young Kobe. I've seen highlights, and I don't know if I know enough to say I believe it. I've seen Damian Lillard in terms of he's a bigger Damian Lillard, comes off screen, hits threes, can go to the rack and dunk on your head. I've seen Cade Cunningham. I think he's a little quicker, more twitchy than Cade. Cade's more of like a cruise control, calm, cool, and collected type of guy with broader shoulders, broader build. But I still see it. And then there's Shai. I don't dislike any of those. He is special. I don't know exactly what, but if you're in comparisons that I don't think are crazy with those guys, you're in a special territory. So let's talk about him versus AJ, right? Many like the bigger player because we saw, especially, let's put this in the context of the Jazz, actually, and then we'll put it to the NBA. But many people are going to like the bigger player because the Jazz have had a diminutive guard who's dynamic, gets to the rim, hits step back threes after, his athleticism makes them scared of him getting to the rim. We're talking about Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell was fantastic for the Jazz. He's been really good for the Cavs. But is he a player that I think is the number one option on a championship team? I have my doubts. I think there's a way he can do it in Cleveland because their team's very, very good and the salary cap changes things, but I digress. The Jazz fans want a wing. Like that's simply what we want because the Jazz want a wing because that's what we've been told to believe are the type of players that can elevate the franchise to winning a championship. And for the most part, I agree with that. Like Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, all these guys you're told like the Jazz need to get one of those. I don't disagree. And I do think there's a world where AJ ends up being better. But I do think with Shai breaking through and, I don't think there's a reason to automatically decide right now that AJ is better because he has a higher ceiling because he's more athletic and he's bigger. AJ is enormous. He's already skilled and he's not polished. He's just not as polished as Darren Peterson. So yes, there may be more room to grow, but maybe that just means that Darren Peterson's fantastic, that he has the ball in his hands and everything happens for a reason. And he has the ball in his hands and is the best with the ball in his hands in this class. Maybe he's the National Player of the Year as a freshman, which I actually think is fairly likely. And he's a 25-point per game scorer in collegiate basketball. And AJ is really good and maybe even on a better team, scoring 19. I think it's a true discussion. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that the athleticism and playing the wing leads to AJ being the number one pick over Darren Peterson. I'm just saying, don't rule out AJ from not being the number one pick. And that actually bodes fantastically for the Utah Jazz because the Jazz are the worst team in the NBA again. We still could pick fifth, just like this past year. We still could pick second, third, fourth, whatever it ends up being. The fact that there's two guys that make this a discussion and there's a third one who might even be better in the collegiate game and has been, at least based on accolades, better in the high school game really bodes well for the Jazz to be bad this season, which is the plan. So right now, in summation, I think Darren Peterson's the best player between these two. Who might be the best player in high school history in terms of accolades and was a former Jazzman's son? Cam Boozer, a breakdown and a comparison coming your way next on Locked On Jazz. I want to tell you guys about my friends at Intercap Lending. It's one of the largest independent lending companies. They're hyper responsive, embrace change, and they have so many excellent testimonials of borrower experience going very well. They're a direct issuer, and this is the part that staggers me. It's a staggering fact. They serve 44 states, not just Utah. You think, wow, because they serve and treat you so well that it's got to be a small company. No, it serves 44 states, and there are amazing testimonials from each of those states. So service your own loan. Build a long-term relationship that's better for you, the consumer, and we've got the best around. It's Steve Carter, our personal loan officer for Locked On Jazz. Call him at 385-800-8528. Make sure to tell him you're part of Locked On Jazz. You listen to them. You listen to us all the time, and you can get the corporate discount. Intercap Lending, NMLS number 190465. For more information, visit intercaplending.com. All right, welcome back to Locked On Jazz. Final segment. We're going to talk about a former Jazzman's son, and that's Carlos Boozer's son, Cam Boozer. And he's one of the most decorated high school players ever, one of the most accomplished high school players ever, and somehow seems to sneak under the radar, which does not make much sense. I think he's the most likely of this trio to make an All-American first team. Though I expect Darren Peterson and Cam to both make it, and AJ is likely near it, but I think is a touch lower because they have a more egalitarian scoring attack at BYU. But I think he's the most likely to be on it, and that speaks very highly of him because I think Darren Peterson could be a National Player of the Year, like I just said. Anyway, Cam Boozer, who I saw actually play live when he was about 5 years old, each week at the Boys and Girls Club when I'd watch my little brother play, he's grown into a special player. And with more skill than what more modern skills than what bigs like his father had, with the body that his father had. And his father, Jazz fans know, was a bear. He'd get downhill, dunk on people, would post up and do his thing. Cam Boozer's 6 foot at 18 years old. He just turned 18 in July. At 18, he's 6'9", 240. Like, he's a big kid, and he's super, super skilled, very nimble, and very able to diagnose the game. And that part of having a pro as a father seems to be apparent with him. Like, you can see that he knows what he's doing and what he's supposed to do. The main method Cam uses to score is his post game. That's unsurprising. You know, he flat out overwhelms players at the high school level. His size, strength, touch, can power through his defender to the rim. And that's going to be hard for anyone to contain in high school. He dunks all over people. He hits touch bank shots. He hits hook shots, spins to the left, finishes with his left, finishes with his right. He's ambidextrous. He's very skilled. And again, being bigger and stronger is something that's going to happen for these top prospects, and it's expected of this level. But what impresses me is the calm, almost surgical precision of the nature in which he sees the game and takes advantage of the matchups, and how easily he deciphers what is the matchup to take advantage of. You think, okay, is he like Carlos? Therefore, he's probably not very quick. Maybe like he's deceptively agile, as you think he might just be a bruiser, but at his size at 18. But he moves very well, shoots it pretty well too, and that shocked me. His arc's a nice high arcing, soft rotation type of shot, and he can drive with fantastic footwork. And that's what complements his sheer strength so much. Is he's not going to always dominate with size. He's not always going to be bigger than his competition, but his footwork complements his strength beautifully. And that's where you can see he's been polished by a pro. He might not have the perimeter shake or the vertical pop that AJ has, and he may not have the dynamic 61-point game against AJ that Darren Peterson has, but he wins battles with fundamentals, touch around the basket, and an improving shooting range, and he plays within himself, which many 5-stars, as accomplished as he is, do not. They play show-off basketball. He regularly impacts games with his rebounding, passing, stuff like that that's within structure that many 5-stars think are too boring. And he makes winning plays at an exceedingly high volume. He doesn't need the ball, but when he has it, he makes the right play, and they win. Like, his teams win. That said, he plays with his twin brother, who's also a highly recruited player. I have a comparison to him, but I want this to be very well understood. I do not want to compare him to Tim Duncan. So do not misunderstand this as a comparison. But he is like Tim Duncan in the sense he's relentlessly great and dominant at his level, but doesn't show the wow factor. He doesn't hit you with flashiness, whereas AJ has those dunks. Darren Peterson crossovers and dunks. And they shine more in mixtapes. But Cam Boozer is methodically putting together one of the best high school careers ever. His touch around the rim is one of the most impressive things I've seen. And this is an area of a game that I think will be very important for him at the next level, as his athleticism is finally matched, as he's not going to be bigger and stronger than NBA players and college players to the same degree as he was in high school. And I see him as an offensive hub. And if he's able to be the same fantastic passer he is, which to me shows his mental acuity, he diagnosed the games as it happens like a point guard playing in the post. And his shot's gotten better. I think the touch around the rim, as he doesn't seem to me as like a super above the rim finisher, I think is super important for him. As he's gotten more nimble and more athletic, I think he's going to be able to, wedge his way, chisel his way to the rack and create advantages. So I think he's super versatile in how he can be used. I expect Duke to use him similarly to how Coach K used Banchero in Banchero's lone year. And I actually think he's ahead of where Paolo Banchero was as a freshman. I think he was a far better high school player than Paolo Banchero, and I expect him to be the better freshman than Paolo Banchero. And that is coming from someone, and you can check this in the old receipts. I had Paolo number 1 that year. I had Paolo number 1 easily over Jabari. I didn't think Jabari was a top 3 prospect that year, and I had him number 4. And I had Chet Holmgren number 2, but I said Paolo Banchero can be a star who scores 25 and 10, and you give me that over someone who's going to anchor a defense and be fantastic. Chet's great. I actually love watching Chet, perhaps more than I liked watching Paolo, but I just thought that the archetype of Paolo Banchero is too desirable to not draft number 1. And I think Cam Boozer is better. I don't have a great comp, so I'm going to give you 3 names that I thought were similar enough, and you can make of it what you will. Somewhere between Paolo Banchero, Al Horford in his prime, and Karl-Anthony Towns. So a very skillful, big, agile forward that can impact the game on offense and on defense. I think if you're to, go through this and go in some 1 through 3 in terms of potential, I think AJ is the number 1 in potential. And I think there can be an argument made for either Peterson or Boozer at 2. So we'll just go AJ at 1. Peterson's the best right now, in my opinion, and may still be by this time next year. And Boozer, to me, is the steadiest. I think he's going to have the best college career. And I think he's going to score 20 and 10 in college. And I think he's going to score 20 and 10 in the pros. That's my assessment. I would take Peterson if the draft was right now and the Jazz at number 1. I would take Darren Peterson number 1. It's risky, it's bold, but I think that guy is fantastic. I think you cannot guard him, and I think he's going to be a all-NBA caliber scorer for years to come. And I honestly think all 3 of these guys could be all-NBA guys. That's exceedingly rare in a draft class, but I don't think it's impossible. Let me know what you guys think. I think the Jazz are in great hands to have a chance to get any of these guys. And that's the biggest part I want to take away. Yeah, you can have your preference. Tell me who you think it is that the Jazz should take if they had number 1. Who should the Jazz want to take? But the fact is, I'd be A-okay with taking any of these guys, and only Cooper Flagg would have been better from this past class. So the Jazz have chosen a good year to have their over-under be set around 18 wins. Well, that'll do it for me today. I'll be back with you again tomorrow. Thank you guys for making Locked On Jazz your first listen today. For your second listen, find the Locked On NBA podcast, where there's no offseason. Doug, Matt, Hayes, all the crew keeps you up to date with contract negotiations, rumors, and everything you need to be the most informed NBA fan. Find Locked On NBA on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you guys. Appreciate it as always, and I'll be back with you again tomorrow. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below.